An election loaded with many different permutations, which is for the future of Europe and Britain. For more about this issue, I spoke to economist and investment advisor Patrick Young from Poland. And like the UK, Poland has reservations about joining the euro. I began by asking why Britain has kept its distance from the European Union.
Many countries didn't join the original euro for various different reasons from amongst the overall European Union. There are 28 countries in total in the European Union. Britain, however, sits in a kind of weirdly semi-detached kind of way from Europe anyway, because, of course, most of the countries, 26 members, effectively, most of them are joined together on the European continent, apart from effectively Cyprus, Malta, the UK, and Ireland. So therefore, a lot of people already think that the UK is kind of, well, some way floating off into the Atlantic, kind of looking towards, well, indeed, our dear cousins in the United States of America. So that's why we've got this sort of differentiation of view. And indeed, yes, 15, 20 years ago, there was a very, very strong political movement in the UK that said they did not want to join the euro currency. They wanted to keep the pound sterling. And actually, that's been a supremely intelligent move because the euro has been one disaster after another.
You and I know it's been a bumpy marriage between the UK and the EU. I mean, we've heard comments from very senior officials in the UK, basically some fairly personal attacks on other senior members of the EU administration. And I guess the question is, if the UK decides to leave for whatever reason, politics aside, does the EU really care at this point? I mean, why do they want the UK to stay in the EU?
Well, I think there's a very, very significant problem here because, of course, the French economy is effectively going nowhere at the moment under President Hollande. Unemployment is going through the roof. The economy is effectively stagnating. And what we're seeing is Britain is recovering from the 2008-2009 Western recession. What that means is that right now the UK is either just ahead of the French economy again or is going to be ahead of it in a couple of months' time, depending on whose statistics you want to look at. What that means is that the United Kingdom is now the second biggest economy in the whole of the European Union. And that's why it's very, very important, because ultimately you have Germany reigning supreme, the great engineering superpower of the age. They're the people to whom we turn for our Audis and BMWs, and indeed they're the people who are effectively paying to keep the European Union together through large amounts of bailouts for the Mediterranean countries and so on in this whole crisis of the euro currency. Now, if the UK goes for the exit, while Brussels are going to say, oh, good riddance, can you really say that the European Union is a plausible union of economic power within the European continent without the United Kingdom? And the answer is, of course you can't.
Interesting, the political dilemma there between France and Germany and also the UK. Now, for consumers and for the rest, look, for the rest of us around the world, we don't live in Europe. Why should we all care whether they stay married or not to the European Union? Why does it matter to Asia, for example, or the US?
Frankly, I'm not sure that it does. I mean, in one way, in the United States of America, we've already heard from President Obama. He's very, very keen to see the United Kingdom stay in the European Union, but that's all got to do with the corporate power of big corporations and big politics. Ultimately, the USA rather likes having the UK in the European Union because, well, they don't agree with all of the things in the family squabbles, and they're often the agent provocateur, as it were, of many different disagreements. So therefore, in some ways, it suits other superpowers. For somebody like, say, China or Malaysia or anybody in Asia, I suppose one concern is the idea that, generally speaking, if the UK was to leave the European Union, what would that leave the European Union looking like? And the truth is, it could lead the European Union to actually breaking up, because ultimately a lot of European economic power would ebb away. Overall, where other governments are coming from is they probably worry about the trade position. Because let's face it, the United Kingdom, that is a free trading nation. Generally speaking, whether the government has been from the left or the right, the UK likes trying to trade with the rest of the world.
All right.
Europe is a much more protectionist place, and that's really a significant difficulty.